The Sweet Discovery. Dr. Elena Martinez stood before the holographic display in the Xenobiological Research Center, her dark eyes fixed on the rapidly changing neural patterns displayed in vibrant colors before her. What had started as a routine analysis of alien physiological responses to Earth consumables had turned into something that would reshape humanity's place in the galaxy. "Run it again," she commanded, her voice steady despite the excitement building in her chest. The AI complied, replaying the interaction between the Ferrero Rocher's unique molecular structure and the Zentari ambassador's neural pathways. The golden spheres of chocolate that had been a simple gesture of Earth hospitality had triggered something unprecedented. The simulation showed it clearly. The precise combination of hazelnuts, chocolate, and that distinctive wafer shell created a cascade of neurochemical responses in alien brains that promoted trust, empathy, and peaceful intention. It wasn't mind control. It was something far more subtle and beautiful. The chocolate somehow bridged the vast biological gaps between species, creating a common ground of pleasure and understanding. Dr. Martinez, her assistant, Kai, called from across the lab. "The UN Security Council is waiting in the virtual conference room." He paused, watching as she gathered her thoughts. "They're saying it's urgent." Elena nodded, straightening her lab coat. "Tell them I'm on my way." "And Kai, bring the last batch of test results. All of them." The virtual conference room materialized around her as she stepped into the holofield. 15 faces looked back at her, representing Earth's most powerful nations. Some appeared interested, others skeptical, but all were waiting to hear what had prompted an emergency session at 3 a.m. Geneva time. "Distinguished representatives," Elena began, her holographic form standing before them. "What I'm about to share will sound impossible, but I assure you, we've verified these findings across 17 different alien species." She gestured, and the neural imaging data filled the space around them. "We've discovered that Ferrero Rocher chocolates create a unique neurological response in alien physiology that facilitates diplomatic relations." The Chinese representative leaned forward. "Dr. Martinez, are you suggesting that chocolate is some kind of diplomatic weapon?" "Not a weapon, Ambassador Chen. Think of it as a bridge." Elena manipulated the display, showing the before and after brain scans of various alien species. The specific combination of ingredients triggers production of chemicals analogous to oxytocin and serotonin in human brains, but across vastly different biological systems. It creates a sense of trust and well-being that transcends species barriers. The American representative, a woman with steel gray hair, spoke next. "And this effect is unique to Ferrero Rocher. What about other chocolates?" "Other chocolates show similar but significantly weaker effects. There's something about the precise ratio of ingredients in Ferrero Rocher, the hazelnut core, the wafer shell, the specific chocolate blend, that creates what we're calling the golden sphere effect." Elena paused, letting that sink in. "We believe this could revolutionize our approach to interstellar diplomacy." The room erupted in overlapping questions, but the Secretary General's voice cut through the chaos. "Dr. Martinez, what are the implications? The risks?" Elena took a deep breath. "The implications are enormous. We've struggled to find common ground with some species, particularly the silicon-based life forms from the Orion arm. But this?" She brought up new data, showing the remarkable success rate of diplomatic meetings where Ferrero Rocher had been served. "This could be the key to establishing lasting peace in the galaxy." "And the risks?" the Secretary General pressed. "The effect is temporary and completely non-addictive. It simply creates a window of opportunity for genuine communication and understanding. The real diplomatic work still needs to be done. This just helps get everyone to the table in the right frame of mind." The Russian representative's voice carried a note of concern. "What happens if this information becomes public? Or if other species attempt to replicate or weaponize this effect?" Elena had been waiting for this question. The effect relies on Earth-specific agricultural products and manufacturing processes, We've already confirmed that synthetic versions don't work. The hazelnut trees, the cocoa beans, they're unique to Earth's biosphere. More importantly, the exact manufacturing process is crucial. Attempts to reverse engineer the effect have failed. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. Humanity, still relatively new to the galactic stage, had stumbled upon something extraordinary, not through advanced technology or military might, but through something as simple and distinctly human as chocolate. The Secretary General spoke again, his voice grave. "Dr. Martinez, what do you recommend as our next steps?" "We establish a specialized diplomatic corps immediately," Elena replied without hesitation. "We train them in both traditional diplomacy and in what we're learning about the Golden Sphere effect. We keep this quiet, not secret, but subtle. And most importantly," she smiled slightly, "we significantly increase our hazelnut production." The meeting continued for hours as plans were made and protocols established. As Elena finally stepped out of the holofield, she found Kai waiting with a small golden sphere on a plate. "Thought you might need this," he said with a knowing smile. Elena unwrapped the Ferrero Rocher, letting the familiar texture and taste ground her after the intense meeting. Who would have thought that humanity's greatest contribution to galactic peace would come wrapped in gold foil? As she savored the chocolate, she could already imagine the future. Diplomatic missions carrying these golden ambassadors to the stars, building bridges between civilizations one sweet moment at a time. The next morning, as news of the discovery spread through classified channels, the price of hazelnut futures skyrocketed. Operation Golden Sphere was about to begin, and with it, a new chapter in human history. Earth's chocolate diplomacy was about to change the galaxy forever. First Contact Protocol. Ambassador Sarah Chen adjusted her ceremonial sash in the mirror of her quarters aboard the diplomatic vessel Sweet Endeavor. 6 months of intensive training had led to this moment. Humanity's first intentional use of the Golden Sphere effect in a critical diplomatic situation. The Murktide, a crystalline species from the Outer Rim, had been threatening to blockade crucial trade routes, and conventional negotiations had failed spectacularly. "Ambassador, we're approaching the Murktide diplomatic station." Captain Rodriguez's voice came through the comm system. "Their escort vessels are maintaining defensive positions." Sarah checked the environmental seals on her diplomatic case. 24 perfectly preserved Ferrero Rocher chocolates, each one a potential key to peace. "Acknowledged, Captain." "Let's hope Dr. Martinez's discovery works as well in practice as it did in the lab." The Murktide diplomatic station loomed before them, a crystalline structure that seemed to have grown rather than been built. Its faceted surfaces reflected the light of the nearby binary stars, creating rainbow cascades across its surface. Beautiful, but also heavily armed. Sarah could see the weapon ports cleverly disguised within the crystalline formations. As she made her way to the docking bay, Sarah recalled her training. The Murktide were silicon-based life forms, their bodies composed of living crystal matrices. They communicated through light pulses and vibrations, making traditional human diplomatic approaches challenging. Previous attempts at negotiation had quite literally been lost in translation. The airlock cycled, and Sarah stepped into the neutral zone between ships. Her escort, 2 members of the newly formed Chocolate Guard, flanked her. They carried no visible weapons. Their most powerful tool was safely stored in Sarah's diplomatic case. The Murktide delegation awaited them. 3 crystalline beings stood, or rather, grew, from the floor, their bodies pulsing with internal light patterns that Sarah's neural translator interpreted as a mixture of suspicion and curiosity. The central figure, slightly larger than the others, shifted its facets to address her. "Ambassador Chen of Earth," the translator converted the light pulses into speech. "You risk much by coming here. Our position is final. The trade routes through our sector will be regulated according to our terms." Sarah bowed slightly, careful to match the exact angle specified in the diplomatic briefings. "Honored Facilitator Crystal, we come seeking understanding and bringing the gift from Earth. a symbol of our desire for peaceful cooperation. The crystalline beings vibrated in what Sarah's training identified as amusement. We do not consume organic matter, Ambassador. Your gifts are meaningless to us. Perhaps, Sarah replied, opening her case with deliberate slowness, but we believe that understanding often begins with sharing. She removed a single golden sphere, letting the station's lights play across its metallic wrapper. The Merktay's internal lights flickered rapidly. They were at least intrigued by the aesthetic similarity to their own crystalline nature. This is a Ferrero Rocher, Sarah continued, carefully unwrapping it to reveal the chocolate beneath. While you cannot eat it as we do, our scientists have discovered that its aromatic compounds can be appreciated by many species through different means. The smallest of the Merktay moved forward, its crystalline surface extending slightly. Sarah recognized the gesture. They were scanning the chocolate with their sensory arrays. The bean's lights pulsed rapidly. Fascinating, the translator rendered. The molecular structure, it creates harmonious vibration patterns within our crystal matrices. Sarah smiled inwardly. Dr. Martinez had predicted this. The complex molecular structure of the chocolate would resonate with the Merktay's crystalline biology in a pleasing way. Would you like to experience more? We brought enough to share with your entire delegation. What followed was unlike any diplomatic meeting in human history. The Merktay discovered that by absorbing the chocolate through their external matrices, they could experience its complexity in ways uniquely suited to their biology. The golden sphere effect manifested differently in their crystalline structures, creating harmonious vibrations that propagated through their bodies like music. As the chocolates were shared and experienced, the light patterns in the chamber shifted from sharp, aggressive pulses to softer, more synchronized rhythms. The Merktay began sharing their own stories through light and vibration, tales of their own struggles with organic species who couldn't understand their way of life. We had assumed, Crystal admitted hours later, their light patterns now gentle and contemplative, that organic beings could never truly understand or respect our nature. Yet here you are, offering something that bridges our differences in ways we never imagined possible. Sarah leaned forward, seizing the moment. That is exactly why the trade routes should remain open and free, facilitator. There is so much more we can learn from each other, so many more bridges we can build. The agreement they reached that day would be studied in diplomatic academies for generations to come. The Merktay not only abandoned their plans for the blockade, but became some of humanity's strongest allies in that sector of space. They were particularly fascinated by the fact that humans had created something so harmonious entirely by accident. As Sarah prepared to return to this sweet endeavor, Crystal approached her one final time. Ambassador Chen, we have a request. Would it be possible to establish a permanent trade agreement specifically for these? Ferrero Rocher. Our scientists believe they could have applications in our crystalline harmonics technology. Sarah smiled. I think that can be arranged, facilitator. Though I should warn you, they're quite popular across the galaxy these days. Back aboard the Sweet Endeavor, Sarah recorded her final log entry for the mission. Operation Golden Sphere diplomatic test successful. The effect manifests differently across species, but the result remains the same. Barriers break down. Understanding grows. Dr. Martinez was right. Sometimes the simplest things can create the strongest bonds. She looked out at the crystalline station, now glowing with warm, friendly colors. Though I don't think anyone expected chocolate to become humanity's greatest diplomatic tool. End log. The Sweet Endeavor began its journey home, leaving behind a trail of golden wrappers and newfound harmony in the vast expanse of space. The Hazelnut Conspiracy. Giovanna Ferrero, CEO of the now interplanetary Ferrero Corporation, stared at the holographic projections floating above her desk in Turin. Something was very wrong with the global hazelnut supply chain. Over the past 3 months, Earth's largest hazelnut farms had reported mysterious crop failures. Turkey, Italy, Chile. One by one, The primary growing regions were experiencing unprecedented problems. "Show me the soil analysis reports again," she commanded. The AI compiled the data, presenting it in a three-dimensional matrix. Giovanna's eyes narrowed as patterns emerged. These weren't random failures. The soil composition had been subtly altered at a molecular level. Her quantum-encrypted comm channel chimed. "Ms. Ferrero," her assistant's voice carried an edge of urgency. "Dr. Martinez is here. She says it's about the hazelnut situation. Send her in immediately." Elena Martinez hadn't aged much in the 5 years since her discovery of the golden sphere effect, but there was a new gravity to her bearing as she entered the office. "It's worse than we thought, Giovanna. The soil alterations. They're artificial, and they're alien in origin." Giovanna's hands tightened on her desk. "You're certain?" Elena projected her own data alongside Giovanna's displays. "The molecular changes are too precise to be natural. Someone is targeting our hazelnut production specifically, and they know exactly what they're doing. Look at this." The new projection showed the modified soil's effect on hazelnut tree roots. The changes were subtle but devastating, gradually altering the nut's chemical composition in ways that would render them useless for the golden sphere effect. "Have you informed the Security Council?" Giovanna asked, already calculating the diplomatic implications. Earth's position in galactic politics now relied heavily on their unique ability to facilitate peace through Ferrero Rocher diplomacy. "That's the other reason I'm here," Elena said grimly. "We've identified the source. It's the Consortium." The Consortium, a loose alliance of trading powers from the galactic core, had been skeptical of Earth's rising diplomatic influence from the start. They'd spent centuries building their power through traditional means: resource control, military might, and economic manipulation. Earth's chocolate diplomacy had disrupted their carefully maintained balance of power. "They're trying to cut us off at the source," Giovanna realized. Without hazelnuts, no more golden sphere effect," Elena confirmed. "And they're being clever about it. No overt aggression, nothing that would justify a military response. Just a gradual, untraceable degradation of our most crucial resource." Giovanna stood, walking to the window that overlooked the ancient city of Turin. 5 generations of her family had built this company, but none had faced a challenge quite like this. "Options. We've been developing countermeasures since we first detected the soil changes," Elena explained, bringing up new data. "Genetic modifications to make the trees more resistant, protective atmospheric shields over the major growing regions. But they're adapting their attack faster than we can defend against it." A priority alert flashed across Giovanna's displays. The latest harvest projections showed an accelerating decline. At this rate, they had maybe 6 months of hazelnut reserves left. "We need to think bigger," Giovanna said, turning back to Elena. "The Consortium is used to dealing with governments, corporations, traditional power structures. But they've never faced anything quite like Earth before." A plan was forming in her mind. "Tell me, Doctor, how do the Murktai feel about agriculture?" Elena's eyes widened as she caught on. "They're crystalline matrices. They could theoretically create controlled growing environments completely isolated from external interference. But they've never shown any interest in organic farming." "They've never had a reason to before," Giovanna smiled. "But thanks to your discovery and Ambassador Chen's diplomatic work, they're now one of our strongest allies, and they're particularly fond of our chocolate." The next few weeks saw an unprecedented mobilization of Earth's diplomatic and scientific resources, while the Consortium continued their subtle attack on Earth's hazelnut production. A far more ambitious plan was taking shape. The Murktai, intrigued by the challenge and eager to help their human allies, began constructing vast crystalline agricultural domes. These structures were marvels of bioengineering, perfect environments for hazelnut trees, protected by the same crystalline technology that made the Murktai themselves immune to molecular manipulation. More importantly, they were completely opaque to the Consortium's scanning technology. But the real masterstroke came from an unexpected source. Ambassador Chen, reviewing historical agricultural data, made a crucial discovery. The hazelnuts we use, she reported to the emergency committee. They're not just regular hazelnuts. The specific varieties, the growing conditions, they're unique to Earth. The consortium isn't just attacking our current production. They're trying to eliminate the source material entirely. This revelation led to a daring operation. Under the cover of routine diplomatic missions, Earth began distributing its hazelnut tree genetic material to trusted allies throughout the galaxy. Each site was different, each protection scheme unique. The Murktide crystalline domes were just the beginning. The aquatic spheres of Europa EX established underwater hazelnut groves, protected by kilometers of ice and watchful whale-like sentience. The energy beings of the Carina Nebula provided pockets of perfectly regulated quantum space where time itself could be manipulated to accelerate growth cycles. Even the Silicon Collective, moved by their own positive experiences with chocolate diplomacy, offered to encode the genetic patterns of Earth's hazelnuts into their living computer networks as a backup. As Giovanna reviewed the progress reports in her office, she allowed herself a small smile. The consortium had fought to strike at Earth's weakness, but they'd only succeeded in demonstrating humanity's greatest strength, the ability to build bridges, forge alliances, and adapt. Ms. Ferrero, her assistant, called. The consortium's representatives are requesting an emergency meeting. They're citing concerns about Earth's agricultural stability. Giovanna picked up a single Ferrero Rocher from the bowl on her desk, admiring how the light played across its golden wrapper. "Tell them I'll be happy to meet with them," she replied. "And make sure to have plenty of chocolates on hand. Something tells me they're about to learn an important lesson about underestimating humanity." The hazelnut wars had begun, and Earth was ready. Operation Golden Sphere. Admiral James Chen watched the tactical display aboard the stealth vessel Dark Chocolate, his sister Sarah's last transmission playing in his mind. The ambassador had discovered something crucial about the consortium's plans, something that went far beyond sabotaging Earth's hazelnut production. But her message had been cut short, and now she was missing. Signal from the Murktide advance scouts. "Admiral," his communications officer reported. "They've detected unusual energy signatures around the consortium's primary agricultural research station. Patterns match the soil modification technology used against Earth's hazelnut farms." James nodded grimly. "Just as we suspected. They're not just trying to destroy our hazelnuts. They're trying to control them, to replicate the Golden Sphere effect." The operation had come together quickly after Sarah's disappearance. The Murktide had offered their most advanced stealth technology, their crystalline ships nearly invisible against the backdrop of space. The Silicon Collective provided quantum computing support, processing vast amounts of data to predict consortium movements. Even the energy beings of Carina had contributed, their consciousness extending through subspace to provide real-time intelligence. "Multiple shipping manifests decoded, sir," the science officer announced. "The consortium has been collecting soil samples from every major hazelnut-producing region on Earth for the past decade. They've been studying them in secret facilities across their territory." Dr. Elena Martinez, specially brought aboard for this mission, looked up from her own displays. "They don't understand," she said, shaking her head. "The Golden Sphere effect isn't just about the chemical composition. It's about the entire process, the specific conditions on Earth, the careful balance we've maintained for centuries. You can't just replicate it in a lab." "They can try," James replied. "And in trying, they might destroy everything that makes it work in the first place." He turned to his tactical officer. "Status of the infiltration teams." "Teams Alpha through Delta are in position, sir. The Murktide crystalline suits are functioning perfectly. Consortium sensors read them as part of the station's structure." The plan was audacious. While the Dark Chocolate and its sister ships maintained their stealth position, the elite teams of human operatives wearing Murktide-designed crystalline camouflage suits had already infiltrated the massive research station. Their mission: locate Ambassador Chen, retrieve her intelligence, and stop whatever the consortium was planning before it was too late. "Sir," the comm officer called out, "we're receiving a coded transmission from Team Alpha." They found her. The tactical display shifted, showing a secure feed from deep within the station. Sarah Chen was there, apparently unharmed, working in what looked like a research lab. But she wasn't alone. She was surrounded by consortium scientists, and she appeared to be helping them. "Play audio," James commanded. "Don't you see?" Sarah's voice came through clearly. "Your approach is fundamentally flawed. The golden sphere effect isn't a weapon to be controlled or a resource to be exploited. It's a bridge between species, a symbol of what's possible when we share our best with each other." A deeper voice responded, one of the consortium leaders. "Your idealism is touching, Ambassador, but naive. Whoever controls this technology controls the future of galactic diplomacy. We've spent too long watching Earth's influence grow through something as trivial as chocolate. It ends now." "Sir," the science officer interrupted, "energy readings from the station are spiking. They're attempting something big." Elena rushed to the console, her eyes widening as she read the data. "They're trying to force grow hazelnuts using accelerated evolution chambers. They've combined their soil modification technology with quantum manipulation fields. If they lose control, they could destroy the basic genetic structure of every hazelnut tree in the galaxy." James finished, "including our backup populations." He keyed the command channel. "All teams, move to backup plan Omega." Ambassador Chen was right. We do this her way. Across the station, the infiltration teams began their real mission. Instead of attacking or sabotaging, they started distributing packages, carefully preserved Ferrero Rocher chocolates, each one accompanied by detailed data about the golden sphere effect research. "What are they doing?" the consortium leader demanded as alerts began flooding his command center. "Stop them." "They're sharing," Sarah replied calmly, "just like we've always done. Because that's what you never understood about the golden sphere effect. It works because we give it freely, share it openly. The more you try to control it, the more it slips away." The station's internal sensors showed consortium security forces rushing to intercept the teams, only to find themselves engaged in conversations with crew members who had received the chocolates. The effect spread through the station like a wave of understanding. "Station power systems are stabilizing," the science officer reported. "They're shutting down the evolution chambers." Elena smiled. "Of course they are. They're finally understanding. The golden sphere effect was never about the hazelnuts or the chocolate. Not really. It was about humanity's gift for bringing people together, for sharing something of ourselves with the galaxy." James watched as, one by one, the hostile signals from the station turned neutral, then friendly. "Status of the infiltration teams. All reporting success, sir. The consortium scientists are requesting a conference. They want to talk." Hours later, James stood with his sister in the station's main conference room, watching as consortium leaders and Earth representatives signed a historic agreement. Not just a peace treaty, but a partnership, combining Earth's chocolate-making expertise with consortium agricultural technology to benefit all species. "You knew this would happen," he said to Sarah. "That's why you let yourself be captured." She smiled, unwrapping a Ferrero Rocher. "Sometimes the best way to defeat an enemy is to turn them into a friend. We just needed to remind them what made the golden sphere effect special in the first place." As the signing ceremony concluded, Dr. Martinez approached them with news from Earth. The soil modification attacks had stopped, and the first joint Earth Consortium agricultural projects were already being planned. Operation Golden Sphere, James mused. Probably the first military operation in history to succeed by giving the enemy chocolate. Sarah laughed. "Not giving, brother. Sharing. There's a difference." Above them, the stars twinkled through the station's transparent dome, bearing witness to yet another victory for humanity's sweetest diplomatic tool. Sweet victory. 10 years after the consortium crisis, the Grand Galactic Diplomatic Center on neutral Centauri Prime was hosting an unprecedented celebration. Representatives from over 1,000 species gathered in the crystalline dome structure, a collaborative design combining Murktide architecture with human aesthetics. At the center of it all stood a stunning display, a chocolate fountain flowing with specially formulated Ferrero Rocher liquid, adapted to be safely experienced by every known sentient species. Dr. Elena Martinez, now Director of Gastronomic Relations, stood beside Giovanna Ferrero as they watched various alien diplomats approach the fountain. Each species had their own unique way of experiencing the chocolate, some through traditional consumption, others through molecular absorption, and some through purely sensory appreciation. Did you ever imagine this when you first discovered the golden sphere effect? Giovanna asked, gesturing at the gathered assembly. Elena smiled, watching as a group of energy beings pulsed with pleasure as they absorbed the chocolate's harmonic frequencies. Never. I was just trying to understand why the Zentari ambassador seemed so much more agreeable after having chocolate at that first meeting. The years following Operation Golden Sphere had transformed galactic society. The partnership between Earth and the former consortium had led to revolutionary advances in agricultural science. The Murktide crystalline growing chambers now dotted planets across the galaxy, producing Earth crops under perfect conditions. But more importantly, they'd learned to adapt the golden sphere effect for different species while maintaining its essential nature. Ambassador Sarah Chen, now Earth's senior representative to the Galactic Council, approached them with a Silicon Collective delegate in Tau. The silicon-based being's crystalline surface rippled with patterns of light that the universal translators had learned to interpret as excitement. Director Martinez, Ms. Ferrero, the being's translated voice carried clear joy. We've just received confirmation. The Council has unanimously approved the establishment of the Interstellar Chocolate Academy. This had been Elena's dream project, a center dedicated to studying and expanding upon the peaceful applications of Earth's greatest diplomatic contribution to the galaxy. The academy would combine culinary arts with xenobiology, chemistry with diplomacy. The location has been decided as well, Sarah added. They've chosen Turin. Giovanna's eyes widened. My family's first chocolate shop will now be part of the most advanced culinary research facility in known space, Sarah finished. The consortium representatives were particularly insistent on the location, something about acknowledging origins and honoring traditions. A soft chime drew their attention to the main stage, where Admiral James Chen was preparing to address the gathering. The years had added some gray to his hair, but his bearing was as proud as ever as he surveyed the assembled delegates. Distinguished representatives of the galaxy, he began, his voice carrying clearly through the chamber. A decade ago, we stood on the brink of conflict. Today, we stand united in celebration, not of victory over one another, but of victory with one another. He gestured to the chocolate fountain. This fountain represents more than just a diplomatic tool or a pleasant treat. It represents humanity's belief that the sweetest victories are those we share. The golden sphere effect worked not because it was a technology to be controlled or a resource to be hoarded, but because it was a gift freely given. The Admiral paused, smiling as he watched a young Murktide crystalline being share their first chocolate experience with a consortium child. We have learned much from each other in these past years. The Murktide taught us about harmony through structure. The Silicon Collective showed us the power of networked consciousness. The energy beings revealed the music of the quantum realm. And yes, the consortium reminded us that even adversaries can become our greatest allies when we choose to share rather than compete. Elena felt tears in her eyes as she watched the various species mingling, sharing, learning from each other. Her simple discovery had grown into something far beyond what anyone could have imagined. The true victory, James continued, isn't in the treaties signed or the alliances forged, though these are important. The true victory is in this moment, in seeing beings from across the galaxy coming together, sharing in something as simple and profound as chocolate. As if to emphasize his point, a group of energy beings began a harmonic display, their frequencies interacting with the chocolate fountain to create patterns of light and sound that had the assembled delegates gasping in wonder. Humanity's gift to the galaxy wasn't just chocolate, James concluded. It was the reminder that sometimes the most powerful forces in the universe are the simplest: sharing, understanding, and yes, a little bit of sweetness. The celebration continued long into the night. Species that had once been bitter enemies found themselves sharing stories over cups of specially adapted hot chocolate. Military commanders discovered common ground with peace advocates while sampling new chocolate variations designed for their unique physiologies. As the event drew to a close, Alina found herself back at the fountain with Giovanna. They watched as the last drops of chocolate made their way down the crystalline structure, each droplet catching the light like a tiny golden star. "You know what this means?" Giovanna asked, unwrapping a classic Ferrero Rocher. "What's that?" "We're going to need to make more chocolate." Alina laughed, accepting the offered sweet. "Good thing we have an entire galaxy willing to help now." Above them, through the transparent dome, the stars twinkled like scattered golden wrappers across the cosmic sea. Humanity had found its place in the galaxy not through force or fear, but through the simple act of sharing something sweet. It was perhaps the most human victory of all. And somewhere in the vast expanse of space, a new diplomatic mission was just beginning, carrying its precious cargo of golden-wrapped chocolates to yet another distant world, continuing humanity's sweetest contribution to galactic peace.